There are moments in childhood that carve themselves into your bones. Not the big ones, not birthdays or holidays or first days of school. The small ones. The ones that feel like nothing at the time. For Ethan Brooks, it was the sound of a screen door slamming shut next door on a June morning when he was 5 years old. He'd been sitting in his front yard building a castle out of wet sand from the garden hose when he heard it. The slam. Then footsteps. Then a voice. "Hi." He'd looked up. A girl stood at the property line between their houses, holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear. She had paint on her fingers, blue and yellow, already drying in the sun. Her hair was pulled into two crooked pigtails. "I'm Mia," she'd said. "We just moved here." Ethan had stared at her for a long moment, then held up a plastic shovel. "Want to help?" She'd stepped over the invisible line between their yards without hesitation. No adults, no permission. Just a 5-year-old girl in a paint-stained dress kneeling down beside a 5-year-old boy in the dirt. They'd spent the rest of that summer building pistols. 17-year-old Ethan Brooks remembered that day the way some people remember dreams fuzzy around the edges, but somehow sharper than real life. He thought about it now as he sat on the hood of his truck parked at the overlook above Cannon Beach. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The ocean stretched out below, endless and indifferent. Beside him, Mia was sketching. She always sketched in the mornings. She said the light was better before the world woke up softer, kinder. Ethan didn't know much about light or art or any of the things that mattered to Mia, but he knew this watching her draw was like watching someone speak a language he'd never learned, but somehow understood. She sat cross-legged on the hood, her sketchbook balanced on her knees. Her hair, longer now darker, was pulled into a messy bun, strands escaping around her face. She'd stolen one of his hoodies at some point, the sleeves rolled up to her elbows. It swallowed her. She didn't look up as she worked. She never did. When Mia was drawing, the rest of the world ceased to exist. Ethan watched the way her hand moved across the page, confident, deliberate. The way she bit her bottom lip when she was concentrating. The way she tilted her head slightly to the left, like she was listening to something no one else could hear. He'd memorized these things over the years. The small things. The things she didn't know he noticed. "You're staring," Mia said without looking up. "I'm not." "You are." She glanced at him, one corner of her mouth lifting into a smirk. "You're doing that thing where you think you're being subtle, but you're really not." Ethan looked away toward the ocean. "I was looking at the view." "The view's in front of you, not beside you. Maybe I like the side view better." Mia laughed, a soft, easy sound that made something in Ethan's chest ache. She went back to her sketch, shaking her head. "You're an idiot," she said, but there was warmth in her voice. Affection. Ethan didn't respond. He just sat there, hands shoved in the pockets of his jacket, watching the sunrise and trying not to think about all the ways he was lying to her. The first lie that he was fine. The second lie that he wasn't terrified of losing her. The third lie that he could keep being just her friend. They'd driven up here at 5 in the morning because Mia had texted him at 4:30, wide awake and restless. Ethan had learned a long time ago not to question it. When Mia couldn't sleep, they drove. When she needed to draw, they found somewhere quiet. When she needed to talk or not talk, he was there. That's what best friends did. "Do you ever think about leaving?" Mia asked suddenly. Ethan's stomach tightened. "Leaving? This town, Oregon? Do you ever think about what's out there?" She gestured vaguely toward the horizon, still not looking up from her sketch. "Like, really think about it." Ethan didn't answer right away. He stared out at the water, at the way the light hit the waves, turning them gold. "Sometimes," he said carefully. "I think about it all the time." Mia's voice was quieter now. "I think about cities where no one knows my name, where I could be anyone, where I could just exist without people having expectations." Ethan's jaw tightened. He knew where this was going. "Your dad again?" Mia sighed, finally setting down her pencil. She closed the sketchbook and hugged it to her chest, staring out at the ocean. "He thinks art is a hobby, not a career." Her voice was flat, resigned. "He keeps talking about architecture programs, engineering, practical things, he says. Things that matter." "Art matters," Ethan said. "Not to him." Ethan wanted to say more. He wanted to tell her that her father was wrong, that she was brilliant, that anyone who couldn't see that was blind. But he'd learned that sometimes Mia didn't want solutions. She just wanted someone to listen. So he waited. After a long moment, Mia leaned back against the windshield, her head tilting up toward the sky. "Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning," she said softly. "Like everyone's holding me underwater, and they don't even realize it." Ethan's throat tightened. He slid closer, close enough that their shoulders touched. "You're not drowning," he said. "You're treading water. There's a difference." Mia turned her head to look at him. In the early morning light, her eyes were darker than usual, brown like earth, like roots that ran deep. "What's the difference?" "One means you're fighting, the other means you've given up." Ethan held her gaze. "And you don't give up. You never have." Something shifted in Mia's expression, something soft and unguarded. For a moment, Ethan thought she might say something real, something that would change everything, and everything. But then she looked away, and the moment passed. "Thanks, E," she said quietly. E, she'd been calling him that since they were kids, short for Ethan, simple, familiar. He hated how much he loved it. They stayed on the overlook until the sun was fully up the sky, turning from amber to blue. By the time they drove back into town, the streets were starting to wake up joggers on the boardwalk, early morning surfers, the smell of coffee drifting from the cafe on Main Street. Ethan pulled into Mia's driveway and put the truck in park. Mia unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't move to get out. She sat there staring at her house, a modest two-story with blue shutters and a garden her mother tended obsessively. "I don't want to go in," she said. "Then don't." "I have to." Mia's voice was resigned. "Mom's making dumplings today. If I'm not there to help, she'll guilt-trip me for the rest of the week." Ethan smiled despite himself. The horror. Mia shot him a look, but she was smiling too. She grabbed her sketchbook and opened the door, one foot already on the pavement. "Hey," Ethan said before she could leave. Mia paused, looking back at him. "Whatever happens," he said, "you're not alone. You know that, right?" Mia's expression softened. She reached over and squeezed his hand, once quick, familiar, before pulling away. "I know." She hopped out of the truck and jogged up the driveway, disappearing through the front door. Ethan sat there for a moment longer, staring at the empty space where she'd been. Then he put the truck in reverse and drove home. The Brooks house was smaller than the Chen's, a single-story ranch with a sagging porch and a lawn that needed mowing. Ethan parked in the driveway and killed the engine, but he didn't get out right away. He could see the light on in the kitchen. His mom was already awake. She was always awake these days. Ethan closed his eyes and took a slow breath, steeling himself. Then he grabbed his keys and headed inside. Linda Brooks was standing at the stove stirring oatmeal. She was wearing her bathrobe, the old blue one that she'd had for as long as Ethan could remember. Her hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, streaks of gray visible in the morning light. She looked tired. She always looked tired now. "Morning, baby," she said without turning around. "You're up early?" "Couldn't sleep." Ethan dropped his keys on the counter and leaned against the doorframe. Mia wanted to catch the sunrise. Linda smiled. That girl and her art. "Yeah." His mom turned to look at him, and for a moment Ethan saw the way her gaze lingered, assessing, searching. She did that a lot lately, like she was trying to memorize him. "You hungry?" she asked. "Not really." "Eat anyway." Linda ladled oatmeal into a bowl and set it on the table. "You're too skinny." Ethan sat down even though he wasn't hungry, even though the last thing he wanted to do was sit in this kitchen and pretend everything was fine. But that's what they did now, they pretended. Linda sat across from him with her own bowl, though she didn't eat. She just wrapped her hands around the mug of tea beside her, staring down at the steam rising from the surface. "How's Mia doing?" she asked after a moment. "She's okay, stressed about college stuff. She'll figure it out. She's smart." Linda took a sip of her tea, then added casually, "You two spend a lot of time together." Ethan kept his eyes on his bowl. "We always have." "I know." Linda's voice was gentle. "I just wonder sometimes if there's more to it than that." Ethan's spoon paused halfway to his mouth. "Mom." "I'm not prying," Linda said quickly. I see the way you look at her, sweetheart. And I know you. You don't let people in easily. But with Mia, you don't have to try." Ethan set down his spoon. He didn't trust himself to speak. Linda reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "It's okay to be scared," she said softly. "But don't let fear keep you from being happy." Ethan looked up at her, and for the first time in months, he saw something in his mother's eyes that wasn't exhaustion or pain. He saw hope. "I'm not scared," he lied. Linda smiled a sad, knowing smile. "Yes, you are." Later that afternoon, Ethan got a text from Mia. "Mia, bonfire tonight at Sarah's. You in?" He stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. "Ethan, yeah. Pick you up at 7, Mia. Perfect. Bring marshmallows." Sarah forgot again. Ethan smiled despite himself. Ethan on it. He set the phone down and leaned back against his bed, staring up at the ceiling. A bonfire. That meant half their senior class would be there. Music, drinking, the usual chaos that came with Sarah Martinez throwing a party. It also meant watching other guys talk to Mia, watching her laugh at their jokes, watching her exist in a world where he was just her best friend. Ethan closed his eyes. He could do this. He'd been doing it for 2 years. He could keep pretending. By the time Ethan pulled up to Mia's house that evening, the sun was already sinking toward the horizon. Mia was waiting on the porch wearing ripped jeans and an oversized flannel shirt. Her hair was down, falling in loose waves over her shoulders. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. "You're late," Mia said as she climbed into the truck. "I'm 3 minutes late." "Still late." She grinned, buckling her seatbelt. "Did you get the marshmallows?" Ethan gestured to the bag in the back seat. "And graham crackers. And chocolate, because I know you." Mia's face lit up. "You're the best." "I know." She punched his arm lightly and Ethan drove. Sarah Martinez lived on the outskirts of town where the houses spread out and the trees grew thicker. Her backyard opened up to the woods, and she'd built a massive fire pit out of old stones and scrap metal. By the time Ethan and Mia arrived, the party was already in full swing, music blasting from a portable speaker, people scattered around the fire, red Solo cups in hand. Sarah spotted them immediately and jogged over, grinning. Finally, she threw her arms around Mia, then turned to Ethan. "Please tell me you brought marshmallows," Ethan confirmed, holding up the bag. "God, I love you." Sarah grabbed the bag and disappeared into the crowd. Mia laughed, shaking her head. "She's a disaster." "She's Sarah." They found a spot near the fire, away from the main chaos, but close enough to feel the warmth. Ethan grabbed 2 beers from the cooler and handed one to Mia. She took it, but didn't drink right away, just held it, staring into the flames. "You okay?" Ethan asked. "Yeah." Mia glanced at him. "Just thinking. About everything." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "And nothing." Ethan wanted to press, but before he could, someone called Mia's name from across the fire. One of the guys from their class, Tyler something. Basketball team. Decent guy. Mia waved and Tyler jogged over, grinning. "Mia Chen, I didn't know you were coming." "Last-minute decision," Mia said, smiling all up at him. Tyler glanced at Ethan, nodded once, then turned back to Mia. "You want to grab a drink? I think Sarah's mixing something lethal in the kitchen." Mia hesitated, glancing at Ethan. "Go ahead," Ethan said, even though it felt like swallowing glass. "I'll be here." Mia gave him a small smile, then followed Tyler toward the house. Ethan watched them go, his grip tightening around his beer. An hour passed, then 2. Ethan stayed by the fire, nursing the same beer, watching the party unfold around him. People came and went. Sarah tried to drag him into a game of beer pong. He declined. He kept one eye on the house, waiting for Mia to come back. When she finally did, her cheeks were flushed, and she was laughing at something Tyler said. She looked happy. Ethan looked away. Mia stumbled slightly as she made her way over, catching herself on his shoulder. "There you are. I've been looking for you." She smelled like cheap vodka and raspberry. "You okay?" Ethan steadied her, his hands on her arms. "I'm great." Mia beamed up at him. "Sarah makes terrible drinks, but they work." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Maybe you should slow down. Maybe you should loosen up." Mia poked his chest, giggling. "You're always so serious." "Someone has to be." Mia's smile faded slightly. She studied his face, her brow furrowing. "Are you mad at me?" "No." "You look mad." "I'm not mad, Mia." She stared at him for a moment longer, then sighed and leaned into him, resting her head against his chest. "You're my favorite person," she said softly. "You know that, right?" Ethan's throat tightened. He wrapped one arm around her, holding her steady. "Yeah," he said. "I know." The night wore on. The fire burned lower. People started to drift away, some heading home, others crashing inside Sarah's house. Ethan stayed by the fire, keeping an eye on Mia, who'd moved to sit with Sarah and a couple of their friends. She was still laughing, still smiling, but her movements were slower now, tired. He was about to suggest they leave when he heard it. I think I'm in love with him. Ethan froze. Mia's voice. Quiet, slurred, but unmistakable. He turned slightly, just enough to see her sitting with Sarah a few feet away, their backs to him. Sarah was leaning, and her expression shifting from surprise to concern. Wait, what? Sarah said. With who? Mia laughed, a soft, sad sound. Ethan. The world stopped. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs, every nerve in his body going still. I've been in love with him for years. Mia continued, her voice barely above a whisper. But I can't tell him. Why not? Sarah asked gently. Because, Mia's voice cracked. Because what if it ruins everything? What if we try and it doesn't work and I lose him? I can't lose him, Sarah. He's the only person who really knows me. Ethan couldn't breathe. So you're just not going to say anything? Sarah's voice was incredulous. I don't know. Mia's shoulders sagged. Maybe it's better this way. Maybe it's safer. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Mia, you can't live your whole life playing it safe. I know. Mia's voice was so small now. But I'm scared. Ethan stood there, frozen, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break through his chest. She loved him. Mia loved him. And she was too scared to tell him. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Mia's words over and over in his head. I think I'm in love with him. I've been in love with him for years, but I'm scared. He understood fear. God, did he understand it? But he also understood something else now. He couldn't keep living like this. He couldn't keep pretending. He couldn't keep hiding behind the safety of friendship while the girl he loved stood on the other side of an invisible line, too afraid to cross it. So maybe he had to be the one to cross it first. Maybe he had to be brave enough for both of them. Ethan rolled over and grabbed his phone from the nightstand. He opened his messages and stared at Mia's name for a long moment. Then he typed, Ethan, we need to talk. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Mia, about what Ethan's hands were shaking. Ethan, everything. Ethan, meet me at the park tomorrow, our spot. There was a long pause. Then Mia, okay. Mia, 3 p.m. Ethan, perfect. Ethan set the phone down and exhaled slowly. Tomorrow, everything would change. He just hoped he was ready for it. The park hadn't changed since they were kids. Same rusted swings, same wooden slide with splinters that caught on clothes, same oak tree in the corner, its branches stretching out like arms reaching for something just out of reach. Ethan sat on one of the swings, his feet dragging in the dirt beneath him. He'd been here for 20 minutes already, even though he was early. He couldn't stay home, couldn't sit still. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from his mom. Mom, don't forget your jacket, rain later. He glanced up at the sky. Clouds were rolling in from the west, heavy and gray. She was right. Of course she was right. Ethan got it. Thanks. He pocketed the phone and went back to waiting. Waiting for Mia. Waiting to say the words he'd been holding back for 2 years. His stomach twisted. What if she didn't remember what she'd said at the party? She'd been drunk. People said things when they were drunk, things they didn't mean. But Ethan had heard the way her voice cracked when she said it, had heard the fear underneath the words. I'm scared. She'd meant it, and now he had to be brave enough to do something about it. Mia showed up at 3:07. She was wearing the same flannel shirt from last night, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't slept either. She stopped a few feet away from the swings, hands shoved in her pockets. Hey, she said. Hey. They stared at each other for a moment. Then Mia moved to the swing beside him and sat down, her feet barely touching the ground. She didn't swing. Neither did Ethan. The silence stretched between them, heavy and awkward, in a way it never had been before. So, Mia said finally, her voice careful, what did you want to talk about? Ethan's heart was pounding. He could feel it in his throat and his fingertips. He could back out. He could make something up. He could keep things exactly the way they were, safe, familiar, easy, but he didn't want easy anymore. I heard you, he said quietly. Mia's head snapped toward him. What? Last night at the bonfire. Ethan looked down at his hands gripping the chains of the swing. I heard you talking to Sarah. The color drained from Mia's face. Ethan, you said you were in love with me. Mia stood up so fast the swing jerked backward. She took a step away, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. You weren't supposed to hear that, she said, her voice tight. I know. I was drunk. I didn't mean Mia. Ethan stood too, taking a step toward her. Did you mean it? She wouldn't look at on him. Her jaw was clenched, her eyes fixed on the ground. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Why? Mia's voice cracked. Why does it matter? So you can let me down easy, so you can tell me you don't feel the same way, and we can go back to pretending everything's fine. That's not, because I can't do that, Ethan. Mia finally looked up at him, and her eyes were shining with unshed tears. I can't sit there and listen to you tell me you only see me as a friend. I can't. I'm in love with you. The words came out before Ethan could stop them. Raw, honest, terrifying. Mia froze. What? Ethan's hands were shaking, but he didn't look away. I'm in love with you, he said again, quieter this time. I have been for 2 years, maybe longer. I don't know, but I know that every time I see you, it feels like I can't breathe. And every time you leave, I count the minutes until I see you again. And when you're happy, I'm happy. When you're hurting, I'm hurting. His voice broke. I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way. Mia was staring at him, her mouth slightly open like she couldn't quite process what he was saying. She shook her head. You love me, yeah. But you never said anything. You never, because I was scared. Ethan took another step closer. Because you are the most important person in my life, and I didn't want to lose you. But I heard what you said last night, and I realized we're both scared. We're both holding back because we don't want to ruin this. Because we could ruin this, Mia whispered. Or, Ethan said softly, we could make it even better. Mia's breath hitched. She looked down and a tear slipped down her cheek. What if it doesn't work? Her voice was so small. What if we try and it's disaster and we can't go back? Ethan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed the tear from her cheek with his thumb. Then at least we'll know we tried, he said. And I'd rather try and fail than spend the rest of my life wondering what if. Mia closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I'm so scared, she whispered. Me too. They stood there for a long moment, the air around them charged with something fragile and new. The wind picked up, and Ethan felt the first drop of rain hit his shoulder. Then another. Then the sky opened up. The rain came fast and hard, cold and sudden. Mia gasped, and Ethan grabbed her hand. Come on! Down. They ran toward the oak tree, ducking under its branches for cover. It didn't help much. The rain was coming down sideways now, soaking through their clothes. Mia was laughing, breathless, her hair already plastered to her face. Ethan was laughing too, even though none of this was funny. It was just them. Mia turned to him, still smiling, and the look in her eyes made Ethan's breath catch. This is insane, she said. Yeah. We're going to ruin everything. Probably a 3D. Mia's smile softened. She reached up, her hand resting against his chest, right over his heart. But maybe it'll be worth it, she said quietly. Ethan didn't think. He just moved. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. It wasn't perfect. It was clumsy and tentative, and their noses bumped, and Mia made a sound that was half laugh, half gasp. But it was them, and it was everything. When they pulled apart, Mia was crying again, but this time she was smiling too. Okay, she whispered. Okay, okay. Mia nodded, her hands gripping the front of his soaked shirt. Let's try. They didn't tell anyone at first. It felt too new, too fragile, like if they said it out loud it might shatter. So they kept it quiet. They still texted at ungodly hours, still drove to the beach at sunrise, still sat in Ethan's truck and talked about everything and nothing. But now Ethan could reach over and take her hand. Now Mia could rest her head on his shoulder without overthinking it. Now when they said goodbye, it was with a kiss soft and careful, like they were both still learning. It was different, but it was also the same. 2 weeks after the rain, Mia invited Ethan over for dinner. It wasn't unusual. He'd eaten at the Chen house 1,000 times, but this time felt different. This time he was nervous. Relax, Mia said as they walked up the driveway. It's just dinner. With your parents, who already know you. As your friend. Ethan stopped at the door. Not as your boyfriend, Mia grinned, and Ethan's stomach flipped at the word. Yeah, that. Mia squeezed his hand. They'll be fine. My mom loves you, and my dad, well, he tolerates you. Great, comforting. Mia laughed and pulled him inside. The Chen house always smelled like something delicious tonight. It was garlic and ginger and soy sauce. Ethan's stomach growled despite his nerves. Mia's mother Hui was in the kitchen, stirring something in a wok. She looked up when they walked in and smiled. Ethan, I was hoping you'd come by. She waved the spatula at him. You're too skinny. Sit, eat. Hi, Mrs. Chen. Ethan smiled. It smells amazing. Flattery will get you everywhere. Hui winked at Mia. I like this one. Mia rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. David Chen was in the living room reading a newspaper. He glanced up when Ethan walked in, nodded once, then went back to his paper. Ethan had known David for 12 years, and the man was still an enigma. Quiet, serious, the kind of person who said more with a look than most people said with words. Dinner was a mix of Mia's mom chattering about everything and nothing, Mia teasing Ethan about his inability to use chopsticks properly, and David asking pointed questions about school and college plans. So, David said, setting down his chopsticks, you're still planning on Oregon basketball scholarship? Ethan nodded. That's the plan. Good. Athletics is a solid foundation. Discipline. Structure. David glanced at Mia. Unlike some people. Mia's jaw tightened. Dad, art is a hobby, Mia, not a career. We've had this conversation, Mia said, her voice carefully controlled, and we'll keep having it until you make a sensible decision. David's tone was firm. Architecture, engineering, even business, anything practical. Art is practical, Mia said quietly. Art is a risk. Ethan could see the way Mia's hands clenched in her lap. He reached under the table and found her hand squeezing gently. Hui cleared her throat. David, let's not do this at the table. David sighed but didn't push further. The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. When they finished, Mia excused herself and Ethan followed her outside. She was standing on the porch, arms crossed, staring out at the street. I'm sorry, she said without looking at him. For what? For him, she gestured vaguely. All of it. Ethan stepped up beside her. He's your dad. He wants what's best for you. He wants what he thinks is best for me. Mia's voice was bitter. He doesn't see me. He sees what he wants me to be. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just wrapped his arms around her, and Mia leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. I applied to RISD, she said softly. Ethan's heart skipped. Rhode Island School of Design. Yeah, Mia's voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't tell him. I didn't tell anyone except Sarah. But I had to try, even if he says no, even if I can't go. Ethan pulled back slightly, looking down at her. Mia, that's amazing. It's terrifying. It's both, Ethan smiled. But you deserve it. You're insanely talented. Mia looked up at him, and for a moment, something shifted in her expression, something raw and vulnerable. What if I get in and he doesn't let me go? Then we'll figure it out, Ethan said. Together. Mia nodded, but Ethan could see the doubt in her eyes. The weeks that followed were some of the best of Ethan's life. He and Mia fell into an easy rhythm. They studied together in the library, went to movies, spent lazy afternoons at the beach. She came to his basketball games and he sat in her backyard while she painted. It felt right. It felt like everything he'd ever wanted. But underneath it all, there was a clock ticking. College applications, deadlines, decisions, and the weight of a secret Ethan was still carrying. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. Ethan was at home sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of financial aid forms spread out in front of him. His mom was at a doctor's appointment, another checkup, another round of tests. The house was too quiet. His phone rang. An unknown number. Ethan almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello, is this Ethan Brooks? Yeah, who's this? This is Coach Miller from University of Oregon. Ethan straightened. Oh, hi, Coach. I wanted to touch base with you about your scholarship. We've been reviewing your film, and I have to say we're excited to have you on the team next year. Ethan's stomach twisted. That's, that's great. Thank you. There's just one thing. Coach Miller paused. We noticed you haven't confirmed your acceptance yet. Deadline's coming up. Everything okay? Ethan stared down at the forms in front of him. Financial aid, medical bills. The numbers blurred together. Yeah, he said quietly. Everything's fine. I need a little more time. Take all the time you need, but not too much, all right? We're counting on you. I know, thanks, Coach. Ethan hung up and set the phone down. Then he put his head in his hands. The truth was he couldn't go. He couldn't leave his mom. Not now, not when she was still. The front door opened and Linda walked in. She looked exhausted, her skin pale, but she was smiling. Hey, baby. You're home early. Ethan wiped his face quickly and stood. How was the appointment? Fine, same as always. Linda set her purse on the counter and started making tea. Dr. Patel says the treatment's working. Numbers look good. Ethan nodded, but he didn't believe it. He'd heard that before. Good was relative. You okay? Linda was watching him now, her brow furrowed. Yeah, just tired. Linda didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. She just handed him a mug of tea and sat down at the table. Oregon called, Ethan said after a moment, and they want me to confirm. Linda's face lit up. Ethan, that's wonderful. Yeah. Linda's smile faded. You don't sound excited. I am. It's just, Ethan looked down at his mug. It's a big decision. Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, You're not thinking about staying, are you? Ethan didn't answer. Ethan? Linda reached across the table and took his hand. Baby, look at me. He did. You are not staying here because of me, Linda said firmly. I won't let you. Mom, I mean it. Her voice was sharp now. I'm fine. I'm getting better. And even if I wasn't, I would never forgive myself if you gave up your future for me. You're more important than basketball. And you're more important than me feeling guilty. Linda squeezed his hand. You've taken care of me for a year, sweetheart. You've been so strong, but it's time for you to live your life. Ethan's throat tightened. I don't know if I can. You can, and you will. Linda smiled even though her eyes were shining. Because I'm your mother, and I'm telling you to. Ethan tried to smile back, but it felt hollow. Because even if his mom was okay, there was still Mia. If he went to Oregon and Mia went to RISD, they'd be on opposite sides of the country. And he didn't know if they'd survive that. 2 days later, the letter came. Ethan was at Mia's house when she opened it. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the envelope. Open it, Sarah said from the couch. She'd come over for moral support. I can't, Mia whispered. Do you want me to? Ethan asked gently. Mia shook her head. She took a deep breath, tore open the envelope, and pulled out the letter. She read it in silence. Then she started crying. Mia, Ethan's heart sank. What? I got in. Mia looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. I got in. Ethan's chest swelled. Mia, that's... The front door slammed. They all froze. David Chen walked into the living room, his expression thunderous. He was holding an envelope. The same envelope. What, he said slowly, is this? Mia's face went white. Dad, you applied to an art school. David's voice was dangerously quiet. Without telling me, I was going to... You were going to what? Spring it on me after you'd already made the decision. David's voice rose. Do you have any idea how irresponsible this is? It's not irresponsible, Mia said, her voice shaking. It's my dream. Your dream is not a plan. It's not a future. It is for me. You're not going. The words hung in the air like a blade. Mia stared at her father, her face crumpling. What? You're not going, David repeated. You'll stay here, go to community college, study something practical. And that's final. You can't do that, Mia said, her voice breaking. I'm your father. I can. David turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Mia stood there frozen. Then she turned and ran upstairs. Ethan started to follow, but Sarah caught his arm. Give her a minute, Sarah said quietly. Ethan's jaw clenched. He can't just, I know, but she needs space right now. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to storm upstairs and hold Mia and tell her it would be okay. But Sarah was right. So he waited. An hour later, Mia came back downstairs. Her eyes were red, her face blotchy. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Don't apologize, Ethan said immediately. I should have told him. I should have. You did nothing wrong. Ethan stood and crossed to her, taking her hands. He's wrong, Mia. Not you. Mia's lip trembled. What if he doesn't change his mind? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. Sarah cleared her throat. Maybe I should go. No, stay, Mia said quickly. Please, I don't want to be alone. Sarah nodded and sat back down. The three of them spent the rest of the evening in silence, watching a movie none of them paid attention to. When Ethan left that night, Mia walked him to the door. I'm sorry you had to see that, she said. Stop apologizing. Mia smiled weakly. I can't help it. Ethan kissed her forehead. We'll figure this out. I promise. Mia nodded, but he could see the defeat in her eyes. As he drove home, Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Mia. Mia, thank you for being here. Ethan always. He set the phone down and stared at the road ahead. He'd made Mia a promise. Now he just had to figure out how to keep it. The following week, Ethan made a decision. He called Coach Miller and told him he needed to defer his scholarship for a year. Personal reasons. Family stuff. The coach was understanding, but Ethan could hear the disappointment in his voice. It didn't matter. If Mia couldn't go to RISD, then he wasn't leaving either. He told himself it was the right thing to do, that they'd figure it out together. But deep down, he knew he was lying to himself. Mia called him late one night, 3 days after her fight with her father. Can you come over? Her voice was small. I need to talk to you. Ethan was in his truck before she even finished the sentence. When he got to her house, she was sitting on the porch steps wrapped in a blanket. She looked exhausted. Ethan sat down beside her and she leaned into him immediately. I can't do this anymore, she said quietly. Do what? Fight. Pretend. I don't know. Mia closed her eyes. I feel like I'm drowning, and every time I try to come up for air, someone pulls me back under. Ethan's chest ached. Mia. My dad won't budge. He says if I go to RISD, he won't pay for it. Won't help. And I can't afford it on my own. Even with the scholarship, her voice cracked. It's not enough. Ethan wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Then we'll find another way. There is no other way. There's always another way. Mia pulled back slightly, looking up at him. You don't get it. This was my shot. And now it's gone. It's not gone. It's just, stop. Mia's voice was sharp now. Stop trying to fix this. You can't. Ethan flinched. I'm just trying to help. I know, but I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to... She stopped, her jaw clenching. I don't know what I need. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Mia said, Are you really deferring your scholarship? Ethan froze. How did you... Sarah heard from Coach Miller's daughter. Mia turned to him, her eyes searching his. Is it true? Ethan didn't answer. Ethan, Mia's voice was shaking now. Tell me you didn't do that because of me. It's not. Tell me. Mia, Ethan. She stood up, the blanket falling from her shoulders. You can't do this. You can't throw away your future for me. I'm not throwing it away. I'm deferring. 1 year. Why, because you need me. No, ma'am. Mia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, I don't. You don't get to make that decision for me. I'm not. You are. Mia's voice broke. You're staying because you think I can't handle this on my own. But I can. I have to. Mia, please. Go to Oregon, Ethan. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. Mia was crying now, her whole body shaking. Because if you stay, I'll never forgive myself, and you'll resent me. And we'll fall apart anyway. That's not true. It is. Mia wiped her face, but the tears kept coming. I love you, but I can't be the reason you give up your dreams. Ethan's throat tightened. You're not. I am. And you know it. They stood there, the space between them suddenly feeling like miles. I can't lose you, Ethan said quietly. You won't. Mia's voice was barely a whisper. But you have to let me do this my way. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was wrong, that they could make it work. But the look in her eyes stopped him, so he just nodded and walked away. 2 days later, Sarah texted Ethan. Sarah, you need to come over now. Ethan, what's wrong? Sarah, just come. Ethan drove to Sarah's house, his stomach twisting with dread. When he walked in, Sarah was pacing in the living room. What happened? Ethan asked. I messed up. Sarah's voice was shaking. I really messed up. What are you talking about? I told Mia. Sarah looked at him, her eyes wide with guilt. About your mom. Ethan's blood went cold. What? I didn't mean to. I swear I went to your house to drop something off, and your mom answered, and she mentioned the treatment, and I assumed Mia knew. Sarah was talking fast now, the words tumbling out. But she didn't, and now she's furious. At you, at me, at everyone. Ethan couldn't breathe. Where is she? I don't know. She left. She said she needed to think. Ethan turned and ran. He tried calling her, texting. Nothing. Finally, he drove to the only place he could think of, the beach. He found her sitting on the sand, her knees pulled to her chest, staring out at the water. Ethan approached slowly, his heart pounding. Mia. She didn't turn around. Go away, Ethan. I can't. Yes, you can. Her voice was cold, flat. You're good at keeping your distance, keeping secrets. Ethan sat down beside her, even though she didn't want him there. I was going to tell you, he said quietly, when after you'd already given up everything. Mia finally looked at him, and the hurt in her eyes was like a knife to his chest. How long have you known? A year. Mia laughed a bitter, broken sound. A year? And you didn't think I deserved to know? I didn't want you to worry. That's not your decision to make. Mia's voice cracked. You don't get to decide what I can and can't handle. You don't get to protect me from the truth. I was trying to. You were lying to me. Mia stood up, brushing sand from her jeans. For a whole year, you looked me in the eye and lied. Mia, please. Don't. She held up a hand, her eyes shining. Just don't. Ethan stood too, reaching for her, but she stepped back. I can't do this right now, she said. I can't. I need space. How much space? Mia's jaw clenched. I don't know. She turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing alone on the beach as the sun set behind him. A week passed, 7 days of silence. Ethan texted Mia twice. She didn't respond. He saw her once in the school parking lot. She was laughing with Sarah, her head thrown back, looking lighter than she had in weeks. She didn't see him, or maybe she did and she just didn't want to. Either way, it hurt the same. Ethan threw himself into basketball. Practice, drills, games, anything to keep his mind from going to the place where Mia existed. And he didn't. His mom noticed. Of course she noticed. You want to talk about it? She asked one evening, sitting across from him at the dinner table. Ethan pushed food around his plate. Nothing to talk about. Mia, he didn't answer. Linda sighed. Baby, I'm sorry. I know Sarah didn't mean to. It's not her fault. Ethan set down his fork. It's mine. I should have told Mia from the beginning. You were protecting her. No, I was protecting myself. Ethan looked up at his mom. I was scared that if she knew she'd stay. And I didn't want her to stay for the wrong reasons. Linda's expression softened. And now she won't even talk to me. Linda reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Give her time. She'll come around. Ethan wanted to believe that, but time felt like it was running out. On the 8th day, Ethan drove to the beach, not because he thought Mia would be there, but because it was the only place that felt like home anymore. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The tide was coming in, the waves crashing against the shore in a rhythm that felt almost like breathing. Ethan sat down in the sand, his back against a piece of driftwood, and pulled out his phone. He opened his notes app and stared at the blank screen. Then he started typing. Not a text, not an apology. A letter. Mia. I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe you'll delete it without opening it. Maybe you'll read it and it won't change anything. But I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. Not for trying to protect you. I'd do that again in a heartbeat. But for lying. For making decisions about us without including you. For acting like I knew what was best when I didn't. You were right. I don't get to decide what you can handle. And I don't get to carry everything on my own just because I'm scared of burdening you. The truth is I've been terrified since the day my mom got diagnosed. Terrified of losing her. Terrified of watching her get sicker. Terrified of having to be strong when all I wanted to do was fall apart. And then there was you. You who made everything better just by existing. You who looked at me like I wasn't broken. You who made me believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be okay. I didn't tell you about my mom because I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want you to look at me differently. I didn't want you to stay out of pity or obligation. I wanted you to stay because you wanted to. But I realize now that I took that choice away from you. And I'm sorry. I know you're going through your own hell right now with your dad and Rusty. I know you're angry. I know you need space, but I also know this. You deserve to go to Rhode Island. You deserve to chase your dreams without guilt or fear or anyone telling you you're not good enough. Because you are. You are more than good enough. You're extraordinary. And if that means we're on opposite sides of the country for 4 years, then so be it. Because I'd rather love you from a distance than lose you completely. I'll wait for you, Mia. However long it takes, always. Ethan read the letter 3 times before he sent it. Then he locked his phone, set it face down in the sand, and watched the sun disappear below the horizon. He didn't expect a response. But 15 minutes later, his phone buzzed. He picked it up, his heart pounding. Mia, where are you? Ethan's hands shook as he typed back. Ethan, the beach. Our spot. Mia, stay there. Mia showed up 20 minutes later. She was wearing sweatpants and one of Ethan's old hoodies, her hair pulled into a messy bun. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. She stopped a few feet away from him, her arms wrapped around herself. Hi, she said. Hi. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Mia sat down beside him, close but not touching. I read your letter, she said quietly. Ethan's throat tightened. And I'm still mad at you. I know. But I also understand why you did it. Mia looked down at her hands. I've been thinking about it all week, about what I would have done if you'd told me. And the truth is, I don't know, maybe I would have stayed. Maybe I would have given up RISD without a second thought because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You sacrifice. Ethan's chest ached. Mia. But that's not love, Mia continued, her voice breaking. That's fear, and I don't want us to be built on fear. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what if. Ethan nodded even though it hurt. So, what do we do? Mia finally looked at him, tears streaming down her face. I don't know, she whispered. I'm so tired of fighting Ethan. I'm tired of trying to make everyone happy. I'm tired of feeling like I'm not enough. You are enough, Ethan said fiercely. You've always been enough. Mia let out a sob and leaned into him. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, holding her as she cried. I don't want to lose you, she said against his chest. You won't. But what if I do? What if we can't survive the distance? What if… Mia. Ethan pulled back, cupping her face in his hands. We don't know what's going to happen, but we can't let fear make our decisions for us. Not anymore. Mia closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. They sat there for a long time holding each other as the sky turned from blue to black and the stars came out one by one. 3 days later, Mia made a decision. She called Ethan at midnight, her voice shaking. I'm not going to rest, she said. Ethan sat up in bed, his heart dropping. What? I can't. My dad won't help, and even with the scholarship, I can't afford it. And her voice cracked. I can't leave you, not now, not when your mom… Mia, no. Ethan's voice was sharp. You're not doing this. I already decided. Then undecide. Ethan was out of bed now, pacing his room. You're not giving up your dream for me. It's not us for you, it's for us. There is no us if you give up who you are. Ethan's throat was tight. Mia, listen to me. If you stay here, you'll resent me. Maybe not today, maybe not next year. But eventually you'll wake up and realize you gave up everything for someone who never asked you to. You're wrong. I'm not. Ethan stopped pacing. And you know I'm not. Mia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, so what, I'm just supposed to leave, go across the country and pretend like none of this matters? No, you go across the country and become the person you're meant to be. And I'll be here cheering you on every step of the way. That's not fair, Mia whispered. Life's not fair. Ethan's voice softened. But this is what love looks like, Mia. It's letting go even when it hurts. It's wanting what's best for someone, even if it's not best for you. Mia was crying now. Ethan could hear it in her breathing. I don't want to do this without you, she said. You're not doing it without me. I'm just not standing next to you. Ethan sat down on his bed, his head in his free hand. But I'll be thinking about you every single day. Mia didn't respond. The line went quiet except for the sound of her breathing. Mia, I'm here. Promise me you'll go. Ethan, promise me. There was a long pause, then quietly, I can't. The line went dead. The next morning, Ethan woke up to banging on his front door. He stumbled out of bed, still half asleep, and opened it. Sarah Martinez stood on his porch, her face furious. You're an idiot, she said. Ethan blinked. What? Mia called me last night, crying, because you told her to go to Rhode Island without you. Sarah crossed her arms. Do you have any idea how messed up that is? I was trying to. I know what you were trying to do. You were trying to be noble, selfless, the perfect boyfriend who sacrifices everything for his girl. Sarah's voice was sharp. But you know what? She doesn't need a martyr. She needs a partner. Ethan's jaw tightened. She needs to go to RISD. And you need to go to Oregon. I can't. My mom is fine, Shaz. Sarah held up a hand. I talked to her yesterday. She told me the treatment worked. She's in remission, has been for 2 months. Ethan froze. What? She didn't tell you because she knew you'd defer your scholarship to stay with her. Sound familiar? Ethan's head was spinning. She's okay. She's more than okay. She's healthy. Sarah stepped closer. So now you have no excuse. You and Mia can both go. You can both chase your dreams. And yeah, it'll be hard. Yeah, you'll be far apart, but you'll figure it out. Ethan stared at her, his heart pounding. Why didn't my mom tell me? Because she loves you, and she didn't want you to throw your life away for her. Sarah's expression softened. Kind of like how you're trying to make Mia throw her life away for you. Ethan felt like he'd been punched. I need to talk to my mom. Yeah, you do. Sarah turned to leave, then paused. And Ethan, fix this, because if you don't, I will. And trust me, you won't like my methods. She left. Ethan stood in the doorway, his mind racing. Then he grabbed his keys and drove to the hospital. He found his mom in the oncology wing talking with Dr. Patel. When she saw him, her face went pale. Ethan, what are you doing here? Why didn't you tell Mom? Ethan's voice was shaking. About the remission, about being okay. Linda exchanged a glance with Dr. Patel, who quietly excused himself. Let's talk outside, Linda said. They walked to a small courtyard behind the building. Linda sat down on a bench and Ethan sat beside her. I was going to tell you, Linda said quietly. I wanted to wait until I was sure. Until enough time had passed that I knew it wasn't coming back. So you let me think you were dying. I never said I was dying. You didn't have to. Ethan's voice cracked. I've been planning my whole life around taking care of you. And you just let me. Linda's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, baby. I didn't know you were doing that. I didn't know you'd deferred your scholarship until Sarah told me. Ethan looked away, his jaw clenched. I can't lose you, he said quietly. You're all I have. No, sweetheart, you have so much more than me. Linda took his hand. You have your whole life ahead of you. You have basketball. You have friends. You have Mia. At the mention of Mia, Ethan's chest tightened. I think I already lost her. Then get her back. Linda squeezed his hand. Go to her house. Tell her the truth. Tell her you were scared and stupid and that you love her. And then let her make her own choice. Ethan looked at his mom, really looked at her. Her color was better. Her eyes were brighter. She looked healthy. She looked alive. You're really okay, he asked. Linda smiled. I'm really okay. Ethan pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Now go. Ethan drove straight to Mia's house. It was raining, of course. It was raining, and by the time he got there, he was soaked. He didn't care. He ran up to the porch and knocked on the door. Mia's mom answered, her eyes widening. Ethan, what are you? Is Mia here? She's upstairs, but Ethan didn't wait. He pushed past her and took the stairs 2 at a time. He knocked on Mia's door. No answer. Mia, it's me. Still nothing. Ethan tried the handle, unlocked. He opened the door. Mia was sitting on her bed surrounded by papers. college brochures, financial aid forms, a letter from RISD. She looked up when he walked in, her eyes red. "What are you doing here?" "My mom's okay," Ethan said, breathless. "She's in remission. She has been for 2 months." Mia stared at him. "What?" "She didn't tell me because she knew I'd stay. Just like I didn't tell you because I knew you'd stay." Ethan stepped closer. "We've both been idiots, Mia. We've both been so scared of losing each other that we've been making decisions based on fear instead of love." Mia's lip trembled. "Ethan." "I'm going to Oregon," he said. "I called Coach Miller this morning. I'm accepting the scholarship." Mia's face crumpled. "So that's it, you're leaving?" "Yes." Ethan sat down beside her, taking her hands. "And you're going to RISD?" "I can't. My dad—" "We'll figure it out. Loans, grants, whatever it takes." Ethan's voice was fierce. "But you're going, Mia, because you're too talented not to. Because you deserve this. Because I love you enough to let you go." Mia was crying now, her whole body shaking. "What if we can't do this?" she whispered. "What if the distance is too much? Then we'll deal with it, together." Ethan brushed a tear from her cheek. "But I'd rather try and fail than spend the rest of my life wondering what if." Mia looked down at their joined hands. "You really think we can make this work?" "I think we'd be stupid not to try, Nick." Mia let out a laugh, wet and broken, but real. Then she kissed him. It wasn't like their first kiss. This one was desperate, scared, full of all the things they were too afraid to say. When they pulled apart, Mia rested her forehead against his. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, okay." Mia smiled through her tears. Let's be stupid together. But there was still one problem. David Chen. 2 weeks later, Mia asked Ethan to come with her to talk to her father. "I need backup," she'd said, "and you're the only person I trust." So Ethan found himself sitting in the Chen living room, his palms sweating, while Mia sat across from her father. David looked between them, his expression unreadable. "So," he said finally, "you want to go to art school?" "Yes," Mia said, her voice steady. "And you think this is a smart decision?" "I think it's my decision." David's jaw tightened. "You're 17. You don't know what you want." "I'm almost 18, and I know exactly what I want." Mia leaned forward. "Dad, I love you, I respect you, but I can't live my life trying to make you happy. I have to live it for me. And what happens when you can't find a job? When you're drowning in debt? Then I'll figure it out, just like you did when you came to this country with nothing." Mia's voice was calm but firm. "You taught me to work hard, to never give up, to fight for what I believe in. So that's what I'm doing." David was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Ethan. "And what do you have to say?" Ethan swallowed hard. "I think Mia is the most talented person I have ever met. And I think if you don't let her do this, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." David's expression didn't change. "You think you know my daughter better than I do." "No, sir, but I know what it's like to have someone hold you back because they're scared. And I know how much it hurts." Ethan held David's gaze. "Mia's not asking for your approval. She's asking for your support. There's a difference." David's jaw clenched. He looked at Mia, then at Ethan, then back at Mia. "If I say no, you'll go anyway, won't you?" Mia nodded. "Yes." David sighed a long, heavy sound and stood up. "I need to think about this," he said. Then he walked out of the room. Mia looked at Ethan, her eyes wide. "That went better than expected," Ethan said. Mia let out a shaky laugh. "Or worse, I can't tell." 3 days later, David knocked on Mia's bedroom door. She opened it and he handed her an envelope. "What's this? Open it." Mia's hands shook as she tore it open. Inside was a check made out to RISD for the full tuition. Mia's breath caught. "Dad." "I don't agree with this," David said, his voice gruff. "I think it's risky. I think you could do better, but—" He paused, his expression softening. "But you're my daughter, and I'd rather support you in something I don't believe in than lose you because I was too stubborn to try." Mia's eyes filled with tears. She threw her arms around her father, and after a moment he hugged her back. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet," David said. "You still have to prove me wrong." Mia pulled back, smiling through her tears. "I will. I promise." The months between spring and graduation passed in a blur. Mia and Ethan spent every moment they could together. Late-night drives, and beach bonfires. Quiet afternoons in Ethan's truck talking about nothing and everything. They didn't talk about the future. Not yet. It was too big, too scary. So they focused on the present, on this moment, this day, this kiss. Graduation day arrived on a Saturday in June. The ceremony was long and boring, filled with speeches about futures and dreams and all the cliche things adults said when they didn't know what else to say. But when Mia walked across the stage to get her diploma, Ethan stood up and cheered louder than anyone else. And when Ethan walked across, Mia did the same. Afterward, they found each other in the crowd. Mia was still wearing her cap and gown, her hair falling in waves over her shoulders. "We did it," she said, grinning. "We did it," Ethan agreed. They hugged, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. Then Mia pulled back, her smile fading. "I leave in 2 weeks," she said quietly. Ethan's chest tightened. "I know. Are we really doing this?" "Yeah, we're really doing this." Mia nodded, but Ethan could see the fear in her eyes. So he kissed her, soft and slow and full of promise. "We're going to be okay," he said. Mia smiled. "You sound so sure." "I am." He wasn't, but he wanted to be. The day Mia left for Rhode Island, Ethan drove her to the airport. They didn't talk much on the drive. There wasn't much to say. Everything that mattered had already been said. At the terminal, Mia grabbed her suitcase from the trunk and turned to face him. "I have something for you," she said. She pulled out a small package wrapped in brown paper. "What is it? Open it when I'm gone." Ethan took the package, his throat tight. "Mia, don't." She shook her head, tears already streaming down her face. "Don't make this harder than it already is." Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her as tightly as he could. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." They stood there for a long time, neither wanting to let go. Finally, Mia pulled back. She kissed him once, slow and achingly sad, then grabbed her suitcase and walked toward the entrance. She paused at the door and looked back. Ethan raised his hand in a wave. Mia smiled even though she was crying. Then she was gone. Ethan drove home in silence. When he got to his room, he sat on his bed and opened the package. Inside was a leather-bound journal. Ethan opened it and his breath caught. Every page was filled with drawings, small sketches, detailed paintings, some in color, some in black and white, 365 of them. One for every day of the past year. The first sketch was of the two of them as kids building sandcastles. The second was them at the beach at sunrise. The third was Ethan at one of his basketball games. Every page was a memory, a moment, a piece of their story. On the last page, there was a drawing of the two of them standing on the beach holding hands, looking out at the ocean. Below it in Mia's handwriting were the words, "Same beach, different time. We'll find our way back. I'll wait for you. Always." Ethan closed the journal and pressed it to his chest. Then he let himself cry, 4 years later. Ethan Brooks stood on the sidelines of the University of Oregon basketball court, watching his team run drills. He wasn't playing anymore. His scholarship had carried him through 4 years, but a knee injury in his junior year had ended his professional dreams before they even started. It had hurt at first, but then Coach Miller offered him an assistant coaching position, and Ethan discovered he loved teaching the game even more than playing it. He was good at it, patient, thoughtful, the kind of coach who saw potential in players others overlooked. His life was good, busy, full, but there was always a piece missing. Mia Chen stood in the back of a gallery in Portland, watching people admire her work. It was her first solo exhibition, 12 paintings, all inspired by the ocean town where she'd grown up. The response had been overwhelming. 3 pieces sold in the first hour. A critic from the Oregonian called her work hauntingly beautiful. A gallery in Seattle wanted to feature her next. It was everything she'd dreamed of. But there was always a piece missing. They hadn't seen each other in 4 years. They'd tried at first. Video calls, texts, long letters in the mail. But the distance had been harder than either of them expected. Missed calls, different time zones, lives moving in separate directions. Eventually, they'd agreed to take a break. Not a breakup, just space. To grow, to become who they needed to be, with the unspoken hope that maybe someday they'd find their way back. It was a Saturday morning in late June when Ethan decided to drive home. He hadn't been back to Cannon Beach in months. His mom had moved to Portland to be closer to him, so there was no reason to go back. But something pulled him there anyway. He parked at the overlook above the beach, the same spot where he and Mia used to watch the sunrise. The town looked the same, the ocean looked the same, but Ethan felt different. He walked down to the beach, the sand soft beneath his feet, and then he saw her. Mia was sitting on a piece of driftwood facing the water. Her hair was longer now, pulled into a loose braid. She was wearing a sundress and had a sketchbook in her lap. Ethan stopped walking. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might break through his chest. Mia looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Mia smiled, slow and warm and achingly familiar. Ethan walked toward her. He sat down on the driftwood beside her, close but not touching. "Hi," he said. "Hi." They stared at each other, and Ethan realized how much he'd missed her. Not just the idea of her, but her. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking. The way her eyes crinkled when she smiled. The way she made the world feel quieter just by being in it. "What are you doing here?" Mia asked softly. "I don't know. I needed to come back." Ethan glanced at her. "You dama." "Same." Mia looked down at her sketchbook. "I have an exhibition in Portland. It opens tonight, but I came here this morning because—" She trailed off. Because this is where everything started." Mia looked up at him, her eyes shining. "And I guess I needed to remember that." Ethan's throat tightened. "I missed you," he said quietly. "I missed you too." They sat in silence for a long moment, the sound of the waves filling the space between them. "Did we make the right choice?" Mia asked. "Going our separate ways?" Ethan thought about it, about the past 4 years, the growth, the pain, the moments where he'd felt completely lost without her arm. "Yeah," he said finally, "we did. We needed to figure out who we were without each other, so we could come back as better versions of ourselves." Mia smiled even though there were tears in her eyes. "That's very mature of you." "I've had time to think about it." "Me too." Mia set down her sketchbook and turned to face him fully. "So what now?" she asked. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, at the girl who'd been his best friend, his first love, the person who knew him better than anyone else in the world. Now he said, "We start over, but this time we do it right. No secrets, no fear, no holding back. And the distance. Portland and Eugene are only 2 hours apart." Ethan smiled. "I think we can manage that." Mia laughed, a real, genuine laugh that made Ethan's chest ache. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." Ethan held out his hand. Mia took it. And for the first time in 4 years, everything felt right. That night, Ethan went to Mia's exhibition. The gallery was packed with people, art collectors, critics, friends. But Ethan only saw her. She stood in the center of the room wearing a black dress, her hair down, smiling, as she talked to someone about her work. When she saw him, her face lit up. She excused herself and walked over. "You came," she said. "Of course I came." Mia bit her lip, her eyes sparkling. "What do you think?" Ethan looked around at the paintings on the walls. Scenes of the ocean, the beach, the town where they'd grown up. And in every single one, if you look closely, there were two small figures in the background. Sitting together, walking together, existing together. "I think," Ethan said, his voice thick, "that you've been carrying us with you this whole time." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "I never stopped." "Neither did I." Ethan pulled her close and Mia rested her head against his chest. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" she whispered. "Yeah," Ethan said, kissing the top of her head. "We're going to be more than okay." 1 year later, Alan and Mia stood on the beach at sunset, their hands intertwined. It hadn't been easy. There had been arguments, misunderstandings, moments where they'd both wondered if they were strong enough to make it work. But they had, because they'd learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about showing up. Every day. Even when it was hard. It was about choosing each other over and over again. "You know what I realized?" Mia said, leaning into him. "What? We've been coming to this beach our whole lives, and we've watched hundreds of sunsets." She looked up at him. "But this one feels different." "Why?" "Because for the first time, I'm not scared of what comes next." Mia smiled. I'm just happy. Ethan's chest tightened in the best way. Me too. They stood there as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and purple. The same beach, the same ocean. But this time there was no space between them. Just two people who'd found their way back.